Second Secretary, Mr. Hiroki Inoue, the President of JICA, Dr. Akihiko Tanaka, the Deputy Chief Secretary of the Office of the President, Mr. Masataka Takeshita, the Director General, South Asia Department, Mr. Teruyuki Ito, the Chief Representative of JICA Sri Lanka, Mr. Tetsuya Yamada, the Senior Representative of JICA Sri Lanka, Ms. Yuri Ide, the Country Officer, South Asia Department, Mr. Shuzo Saigawa, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratna, the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Professor Lasantha Manavadu, the Dean of the Faculty of Management, Professor Nihal Hendanayaka, the Director of the University of Colombo School of Computing, Professor Ajanta Atukorala, the Registrar of the University of Colombo, Mrs. Wajira Hapuhinna, the Bursar of the University of Colombo, Mrs. Tanuja Dharmasena, the Director of the International Office, Dr. Iroja Caldera, and one student representative.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may take your seats. Sri Lanka and Japan share a long-standing, multifaceted relationship that spans economic, cultural, and diplomatic ties. The diplomatic relationship between these two states was established in the year 1952, and since then, the bond has strengthened over the years. One key player in enhancing the bilateral relationship with Japan is the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, which has made significant contributions to Sri Lanka's development. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. My name is Nimuthu Sirivardhana, and I'm accompanied by Ms. Dinuvi Amitna, and we will be your hosts for this morning. JICA has been actively involved in supporting Sri Lanka's economic, social, and cultural development through various projects and initiatives. The agency's contributions encompass a wide range of sectors, including infrastructure, education, healthcare, and technology. These collaborative efforts have not only addressed immediate needs, but also has laid the foundation to long-term sustainable growth. Today also goes to the history books as an important landmark of the JICA Sri Lanka relations, as today we will be closing another chapter of the JICA Chair Program. And this occasion is graced by the president of JICA himself, Dr. Akihiko Tanaka, and the Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Mitsukoshi Hideaki. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause. This is the closing ceremony of the JICA Chair Program for the year 2023 and 24.
Now, I would like to cordially invite the Director, International Office, Dr. Iroja Caldera, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning, everyone. Aibowan, konnichiwa. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the closing ceremony of the JICA Chair Program of the University of Colombo. We are honored to respectfully welcome on this occasion to the University of Colombo His Excellency, the Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka, Mr. Hideaki Mitsukoshi. I also welcome the Deputy Ambassador, Mr. Kotaro Katsuki, and the Second Secretary, Mr. Hiroki Ino. We are indeed privileged to have with us today the President of JICA, Dr. Akihiko Tanaka, and we warmly welcome you, sir, and are looking forward to hearing your lecture this morning. We also welcome the Director General, South Asia Department, Mr. Teduyuki Ito, and the Deputy Chief Secretary, Mr. Masataka Takashita. We are grateful for the presence of the Chief Representative, JICA Sri Lanka, Mr. Tetsuya Yamada, the Senior Representative, Ms. Yuri Ide, and all the members of the JICA Sri Lanka team. I now extend a warm welcome to the Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, Senior Professor Chair, H.D. Karunaratne, along with the Rector, the Deans, and the Directors of the University of Colombo. I gratefully acknowledge the presence of the heads of departments of international relations, international business, economics, and business economics, along with all academic members. I also welcome the acting registrar and the bursar of the University of Colombo, all administrative staff members, our dear students who are present here today, and all participants who are joining us online. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today marks the closing ceremony of yet another successfully conducted JICA Chair Program at the University of Colombo. Held for the second consecutive year, it included short, intensive lectures focusing on Japan's development experiences in the fields of politics, economics, public administration, policy, and law. We believe our students greatly benefited from this experience, and the student panel discussion that will happen later today will showcase some of their learnings. Japan serves as one of the best examples for developing countries to follow in their homegrown model of socioeconomic development. Further, by sharing their initiative, Japan can lead development studies globally and thereby contribute strongly to sustainable development. We know that sustainability is an integral part of the work done through JICA, and thus their input can guide sustainable development in countries such as Sri Lanka. Therefore, the University of Colombo is indeed proud to be a part of the JICA Chair Program while contributing to Sri Lanka's future development. As I close, I would like to welcome all of you once again, and I wish you all a very pleasant and productive morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam. Now, it is my honor to respectfully invite the Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka, His Excellency, Mr. Mizukoshi Hideaki, up on stage to speak a few words.
Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne, Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo, Dr. Akihiko Tanaka, President of JICA, Mr. Tetsuya Yamada, Chief Representative, JICA Sri Lanka Office, and all the delegation from JICA, Dr. H. Iroja Caldera, Director of International Office, University of Colombo, Professor Chaminda Padu Makumara, Head of Department of International Relations, University of Colombo, professors, dear students, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Aiboan, Wanakam, and good morning. I would like to first express my heartfelt gratitude for having me at this closing ceremony of JICA Chair at the University of Colombo, coinciding with a much-awaited visit by Dr. Tanaka, President of JICA. To begin with, I would like to express my deepest appreciation to Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne, Dr. Tanaka, the faculty and staff members of the University of Colombo, JICA office, and all others who have made great dedication and efforts in making this program a great success. It is my great pleasure that the promising students at the University of Colombo, who are expected to play a critical role in shaping the future of Sri Lanka, have been given precious opportunities to learn about the Japanese development experience through JICA Chair Program. Through the 6 lectures given so far, I am sure that you have learned about a wide variety of topics, such as Japan's modernization and economic development, as well as the development of agriculture, competition law, and Japanese companies. Today, Dr. Tanaka, President of JICA and the most prominent luminary of international politics in Japan, will enlighten us on international relations amid multiple crises that we face now. I am very excited to listen to his lecture with you, as if I'm back to student of Tokyo University. Before we wallow in the intellectual pleasure to be imbued by Dr. Tanaka, I would like to share with you what I have observed are some of the challenges Sri Lanka is facing from the perspective of international relations. I would like to raise two issues. One is a problem of the debt restructuring, and the other is a problem of reconciliation of North and South of Sri Lanka. As it is still palpable memory for us all, Sri Lanka experienced an economic crisis in 2022 that was said to be the worst since its independence. Multiple factors contributed to making the crisis what it was, and this complexity of the crisis made it extremely difficult for Sri Lanka to keep it at bay. The external debt restructuring process clearly exhibited the complex nature of the crisis. In order to restore its debt sustainability, Sri Lanka had to take on the daunting task of debt restructuring, but its major creditor countries include China and India, which are not members of the Paris Club. Furthermore, it was not possible for the Paris Club alone, which has expertise in debt restructuring, to solve this issue. This is where Japan jumped in the process. With France and India, Japan launched the Official Creditors Committee, where Japan had played a leading role in facilitating negotiations that culminated in the agreement in principle last November. It is an illustration how economic issues can become a matter of international relations and how important it is to maintain good relations with a trusted partner. The debtor country's future development assistance for Sri Lanka hinges on the success of the external debt restructuring. Japan will continue to support Sri Lanka's debt restructuring, as failure of it could fetter Sri Lanka's development potential and damage the important role of Sri Lanka as the hub in the Indian Ocean, which is benefiting all the entire international community. Another challenge that Sri Lanka needs to address, in my view, is the reconciliation and unity of this country. A country can be vulnerable from the perspective of international relations when it has serious divisions within the nation. Civil war from 1983 to 2009 in Sri Lanka was a huge damage for Sri Lanka, not only in terms of human lives and economic development, but also for its diplomatic relations with the outside world. Because divisions within a country give a leverage for other countries to exert influence in its domestic affairs for their own benefit. So I think it is still very important for Sri Lanka to achieve reconciliation between different ethnic groups in the country and create national unity to ensure Sri Lanka's stable and prosperous future. During the Civil War, Japan sent Mr. Akash Yasushi as Special Envoy for Reconciliation in Sri Lanka. He was very trusted in Sri Lanka for his neutral and sincere attitudes to all parties, all stakeholders. Now I'm, trying to tread after his path and try to contribute to the facilitation of reconciliation between different ethnic groups in Sri Lanka, which I believe will serve for the political stability of Sri Lanka. Japan is supporting Sri Lanka in these fields, not only because Japan and Sri Lanka enjoy a traditional friendship, but also because stable and prosperous Sri Lanka is important for free and open Indian Ocean, which is one of our important diplomatic goals. In addressing these challenges, the JICA Chair Program, I believe, will provide you with useful lessons Sri Lankan can draw on and new perspectives you can employ when it is your time to actually deal with these challenges. I am truly grateful to JICA for bringing such a timely and relevant lecture series to Sri Lanka, and I trust that Dr. Tanaka's lecture that follows will make your JICA Chair experience a lifelong treasure. In concluding, I would like to extend my sincere hope that all the talented students here today will not only make the most out of what you have learned through the JICA Chair Program in your future endeavors, but also become goodwill ambassadors who will bring our two countries closer together in the future. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir, for sharing those wonderful insights about the wonderful relationship between Sri Lanka and Japan. Up next, it is my duty to invite Mr. Tetsuya Yamada, the Chief Representative of JICA Sri Lanka office.
Vice Chancellor and Senior Professor H.D. Karanatne, University of Colombo, Dr. H. Roja Becca Caldera, Director of International Office, University of Colombo, Professor Chaminda Padmakumara, Head of the Department of International Relations, Mr. Hideaki Mizukoshi, Ambassador of Japan in Sri Lanka, Dr. Tanaka, President of Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, deans, heads of departments, faculty members, non-academic staff, students, very good morning. Ohayou gozaimasu. Aiboan. This is second year of JICA Chair Program at the University of Colombo. We have 100 students this year alone who successfully completed the certificate course of JICA Chair Program on Japan Modernization Studies. The cumulative total number of students who completed the program in the past 2 years now reached 245 students. So first and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to all the students who have successfully completed the program. And I would like to thank you, University of Colombo, headed by H.D. Karanatra, Vice Chancellor, and other leadership of the University of Colombo for partnering with us for their strong commitment to conduct this JICA Chair Program in a successful manner. As we discuss under this JICA Chair Program about Japanese modernization history of transformation of our society from various aspects, Sri Lanka has also been undergoing historical, economic, political, social, and humanitarian crisis for the past 2 years that requires transformational reforms. So I think it's quite timely that we have conducted this JICA Chair Program with the University of Colombo. And this gives us special meaning to our JICA Chair Program. This year, we had various lecturers from with exceptional knowledge from Japan to cover a broad range of topics. We also included the visit to the Colombo Dockyard, a leading shipbuilding company and the largest Japanese investment in Sri Lanka, which provided us with insight into Japanese-style company management and administration and human resource management, and its huge role for the country's economic development. Last December, Dr. Shinichi Kitaoka, former president of JICA, currently a special advisor to the president of JICA, visited Sri Lanka and gave a lecture with a powerful message to the young generation who will lead the future of Sri Lanka. Today, it is with great pleasure and privilege to note that we have Dr. Akihiko Tanaka, president of JICA, with us. He is on a 3-day visit to Sri Lanka, meeting with the top leaders of the country, as well as people on the ground, and exchanging views with young generations. He specifically chose to visit University of Colombo to give a lecture and discuss with the young generation. He will give a lecture titled International Relations Under Compound Crisis, a Japanese Perspective. We believe this opportunity will provide us an insightful insight into how Japan has shaped and maintained its international relations in the current compound crisis-affected world, and how young leaders like yourselves, who will lead the next generation, can be the driving force in rebuilding the nation. So enjoy the closing session, and I am looking forward to working with you closely in the future as well. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Yamada. According to the recent statistics issued by global ranking leaders such as the Times Higher Education, QS Rankings, and Webometrics, University of Colombo has been able to secure the top position in the University of Sri Lankan, the Sri Lankan university system throughout the past consecutive years. And one person who should be celebrated for this consistency is none other than the Vice Chancellor of University of Colombo, Senior Professor Chair H.T. Karunaratne. Sir, it is my honor to invite you on stage to share your thoughts about this moment and about this journey.
Dr. Tanaka Akihiko, President of the Japan International Corporation, His Excellency Mitsukoshi Hideaki, Ambassador of Japan in Sri Lanka, Mr. Tetsuya Yamada, the Sri Lankan resident representative of JICA, all other JICA staff members, delegations, embassy staff members, deans, directors, Director International Office, dear students, it gives me immense pleasure and honor to address you today when we are closing the very successful JICA Chair Program in the University of Colombo. This JICA Chair Program is implemented all over the world to educate the unique experience in Japan as a developed country. Why Japan is the main question. You know that Japan is the third largest economy in the world, only having with 120 million population. So that, you know, Japan made a miracle in the world in terms of economic development. Why it is? It made a different model of capitalism going by the rapid economic growth plus less inequality, the lowest income inequality among the advanced countries, and looking there all the inclusive activities, we can learn many things. You know that we were worried about COVID, COVID-19 pandemic. When the COVID-19 pandemic coming, Japan had, I think, over 60,000 100 years elderly people. Over 100 years elderly people, over 60,000. So you see, even that, Japan could face very well the COVID-19, right? So we know the world highest life expectancy is in Japan, and all inclusive activities going on in Japan. So in terms of technology, we know that Japan is leading the world, has been in the history. And of course, Japan is the first developed country from the Asian continent. So we know that after the Second World War, Japan was destroyed and devastated, but within 25 years, it came as again a developed country. It's the only country in the world within 2 decades and 5 years came to the advanced nation. That's why the people call Japan as a miraculous country. In the subject of economics, started first time calling the miracle, East Asian economic miracle. Not only that, the Japan supported close by all the East Asian countries to coming into the today's level. And there were many innovations during the Japan's development. There were many programs on Japan's development. World's smallest camera, I think the world's longest undersea tunnel. There are many, many things. World tallest building in 1964 somewhere, Kasumigaseki building. So like that, there were many innovations, and particularly in terms of automobile industry, Japan made the record in the world, and even I think today, substantial part of the American automobile market is handling by the Japanese exports. And of course, the typical economic theories tell us that exporting is essential for economic development. In practice, Japan is the country who showed it to the world that if you export, you can develop in the world. Otherwise, you will not be able to go into the global as a developed country. So I believe that the JICA, particularly after the 1950s, JICA played a crucial role connecting the developing countries. And for Sri Lanka, JICA has helped a lot. The many, particularly for our University of Colombo, the Faculty of Nursing buildings, which we call the Javadanapura Hospital, entirely donated by the JICA. Not only that, the place we are in today, ICT, of course, the first aid program, the University of Colombo School of Computing received many computers, experts, and huge support when they established as a University of Colombo School of Computing. Not only that, the University of Colombo School of Computing conducted third country training program with the money provided by the JICA for other African countries and other Asian countries from 1994 to 2002. So that is another aspect of supporting Japan for third countries, not only one country, the benefit divided into various parts of the world. So that is very important thing, because helping for poor people is not only one way, but there are many other ways. In today's context, the Japan, particularly JICA, focuses on 3 priority areas in Sri Lanka, particularly that promoting quality growth, the development cooperation for inclusive growth, and mitigating vulnerabilities. Many incidents happen in Sri Lanka, like we know the solid waste mountain erupted, disasters came in Sri Lanka, and in such a time, JICA helped a lot to Sri Lanka. So Japan and Sri Lanka, long-term friends. Actually, in my opinion, the Sri Lanka has not much capitalized the Japan's relations because we were the pioneer country which had the diplomatic relationships between Japan and Sri Lanka in 1950s. So that anyway, in 2021, I think Mr. Yamada Tetsuya talked to me regarding the JICA Chair Program. Then, of course, we gradually started in 2022. And of course, it is one of the best programs now in the University of Colombo. Initially, we selected only 4 departments: Department of Economics in the Faculty of Arts, International Relations, and Department of Business Economics in the Faculty of Management and Finance, and Department of International Business. So these 4 department students participated at the very beginning. And of course, now we are going to open it to the University of Colombo, all the students in future, and get the message coming from the very exemplary country where the world leading by themselves. So that I don't want to take much time. I should express my gratitude for JICA and all Japanese embassy related officers who contributed for this 6 lecture series in this time. And of course, we show that many Japanese professors came, that when they come, that they bring many things. This time they, of course, came for the special research project and policy making in Sri Lanka, the competition law and policy in Sri Lanka. That's a project where the Sri Lanka need competition policy. And that's not only just to deliver lecture, but that professor is in the line of developing policy for Sri Lankan competition law. On the other hand, very recently, Professor Todo came from the Waseda University with 14 students. So he interacted with our students as well. So the young generation benefited from not only that lecture, but having the linkage among them. So therefore, I think in the 21st century, we all believe that networking is the most important. So JICA, we should thank that selecting the University of Colombo to implement this JICA Chair Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful words about how JICA has strengthened the bond between Japan and Sri Lanka. It is truly a privilege to have a distinguished personality such as Dr. Akihiko Tanaka with us today. He is the current president of JICA and was also the president of the National Graduate Institute of Policy Studies, Japan. He obtained his bachelor's degree in international relations from the University of Tokyo and PhD in political science from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He has numerous books and articles on world politics and security issues in both Japanese and English, and has also received a number of awards and accolades, including the Medal with Purple Ribbon for his academic achievements in 2012. Now, it is with great pleasure and honor that I respectfully invite Dr. Akihiko Tanaka on stage to share his knowledge and expertise on international relations under Compound Crises, a Japanese perspective.
Well, Vice Chancellor Professor Karunaratne, the deans, heads of faculty, and dear students, good morning. It is my great pleasure to be on the stage to join the series of JICA Chair programs. as was introduced, you know that I'm president of JICA, but on this occasion, I act as a professor selected by the JICA Chair Program. And so I would like to follow my normal styles of lecturing. As JICA president, I often read scripts, very solemn and formal, and the official. But this is going to be a lecture that I'm usually doing in university. I have been a university teacher since 1982, and I have been giving lectures in a normally very, very informal manner. And so today I would like to do that in a similar manner. Also, I would like to mention that my talk today is not particularly focused on Japanese development per se. Previous lecturers have covered all elements of Japanese development, and also Vice Chancellor masterfully summarized the very important aspects of Japanese development. Today, what I would like to talk about is the current world situation, and how a Japanese specialist on international relations see the current world that both Sri Lanka and Japan face. And there are many things that we don't know what to do about the current world, but it is important to look at the current world in a square manner, so that the peoples around the world together try to find out ways how to improve the current situation. And so I hope today's talk will be one of the sources that you can use to think about what we are going to do in the future. Let me start. Firstly, even though we are talking about a current world, I would like to start with the long-term changes of the world. The first slide is an attempt to let you refresh your memory of the modern history. And one way is to look over what kind of disasters we had gone through. The most important disaster was the war. And this is the number of war deaths since the beginning of the 20th century to now. And then, as you know clearly, two big things: World War I in the 19teens and World War II. And then after World War II, we had gone through what is called the Cold War period. And then the Cold War ended in the late 1980s and early 1990s. And then we had gone through what may be called the post-Cold War. And now we may be entering into other period than the previous ones. And then what this picture indicates is that, as you see very clearly, how terrible the World War I and World War II were. In both wars, world had seen more than 1.5 to 2 million deaths per year. So the beginning part of the 20th century was a really terrible period. After the Second World War, one may become very optimistic with the size of deaths in comparison with these two gigantic towers. And then, as you see, during the post-Cold War period from 1990s to the 21st century, the death tolls were fairly low, or in comparison with the first part of the 20th century. But you know, here is a sort of trick of the magnitudes. Because you have huge disaster here, some of these changes appear to be insignificant or minor. But recently, the number of deaths appear to have increased very much as a result of Russia-Ukraine war. And then this height is nearly similar to the height of war deaths in Iraq and Iran-Iraq war and Vietnam war, and slightly lower than the Korean war. And so, the world is a far better place in comparison with the first half of the 20th century. But the world may not be so much better than the period of the Cold War period, when the world is suffering from Iran-Iraq war, or Vietnam war, or Korean war. That's a first cut of the very rough development of the modern world. And this is simply reflected of the death toll. And then the second picture is again also the development from the beginning of 20th century to now. And this is the blue bar indicates the annual growth rate of per capita GDP globally. So, you know, each country has a GDP data, and per capita GDP means per capita GDP of each country. This one is probably, strictly speaking, I would call it per capita gross world production. So it's an average per capita income, and the line is a growth rate. And so blue indicates the positive growth globally, and red indicates the negative growth globally. And so this is in contrast to the previous slide, which was dealing with the war and politics. And this is mostly dealing with economic conditions. And, but then, looking at this, you may see somewhat similar trends in the previous slide. The reason is because World War I period, World War II period were the period of terrible economic conditions. But in addition to the war, there are several other factors that could impact the economic conditions. Most prominent is pandemics. The negative growth around here were affected by 1980 influenza, what is now wrongly called the Spanish influenza. And then here at the, in 2020, COVID-19. And both pandemics brought the world economy into disastrous conditions. And then also, there are several internal economic dynamics, disaster caused by the internal economic dynamics. One is the Great Depression in the 1930s. This is caused by the malfunction of the economic system. And then another one recently, financial crisis in 2008, caused by the failure of Lehman Brothers and others. But the world is punctuated by a fair number of significant disastrous events and disastrous pandemics. But then overall, after the end of the Cold War, as you see a lot of blues other than reds. And so again, the first half of 20th century was a terrible year in terms of war deaths, and even in terms of economic conditions, the first half of 20th century was quite bad. In contrast, the post-World War II period, you saw generally a positive growth, which was often called the golden age of the globalization. But there are certain events that pushed the economy down, the oil crisis, and end of Cold War. But then in the previous slide, I call these periods called the Cold War period. And then from here, the post-Cold War period started. And then the beginning part of post-Cold War period, from 1995, somewhere around the 21st century, you see, is the high growth period globally. Only punctuated by financial crisis in 2008. But then now, COVID-19 brought about decline, and then whether we could go up after that, or whether we are supposed to experience a stagnated period remains to be seen. So these are the sort of chronological changes of the world, and recent period in the end, we would like to analyze what we should do around this period. After all these experiences and ups and downs. So that's the first point that I would like you to keep in mind. Then this, I think, is a sort of a chronological view when we look at the world as a single entity. But of course, the world is not a single entity. A world consists of many parts, and different parts experiences different things. And so I would like to go into such differentiated conditions by proposing the topic of what I call the rise of the Indo-Pacific. Well, this is a graph indicating world GDP shares. The data is from Professor Angus Madison's very important attempt to estimate the people's living conditions throughout history. And I calculated, based on Angus Madison's project's data, the share of GDP by region from 1820, the beginning of what I call the rise of the West. In 1820, early 1920s, as you see, the prominent characteristics is that the largest share of global GDP goes to East Asia. And the second, and then South Asia constituted 20%. So combining East Asia and Southeast Asia, more than 50% of GDP was located other than in what we call the West. The Europe in 80-20 is about 25%. The North America is just about 2%. And this condition has undergone a tremendous change in the coming century. The share of West and share of the North America increased, and so by the middle of 20th century, combined share of Western Europe and North America reached more than 50%. In contrast, the combined share of East Asia and South Asia declines in the first 20th century. It constitutes only 17%, so, you know, when I was a college student or high school student, we learned from high school history book. And when we learned those high school history book, what was taught was the story of this change. The West increased its share, dynamically developed, and appears to continue to develop forever, while the other part of the world is stagnant and even declining, and decline appears to continue forever. And that was the time in 1950, and so the high school textbooks that was written in the 1960s reflected these changes. But then, of course, as this figure indicates, this curve didn't continue forever. It turned around, and the latter part of the 20th century saw the increasing share of East Asia and South Asia. And relative size of what we call the West, in this picture, the bluish area declines, and so currently the last estimate point of the Madison project is 2018, and the bluish part is less than 50%, and red, yellow, and then if you add Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa, this portion appears to reach 50% or so. And so, ignoring all historical changes, the distribution, current distribution, appears to be fairly similar to in 1850. And this may be summarized as the shifting location of center of gravity of global economy. The late 19th century saw the rise of the Atlantic, both Western Europe and North America. The center of economic gravity then was located somewhere in the middle of North America and Western Europe. And then late 20th century saw the center of gravity shifted to what may be called the Pacific. East Asia's percentage has increased very much. And well, Japan's high growth period corresponded with the increasing expansion in East Asian production. And then I would argue as the world enters 21st century, the center of gravity of economic dynamism is now shifting to somewhere in what is called the Indo-Pacific, broad area between the Pacific region as well as the Indian Ocean region. This is the GDP growth rate of the world at the time of 2016. And this pink indicates growth rate is over 4 to +6. Some of them have 7% increase, 8% increase. But pink means more than 4% growth. And then as you see, including some Pacific Island nations growth rate, the pinkish area is around here. This is what we now call the Indo-Pacific. And then it is no coincidence that Prime Minister Shinzo Abe made a now quite famous remarks at Nairobi, Kenya in 2016 at the what is called the Tokyo International Conference for African Development, TICAD. And Mr. Abe said, when you cross the seas of Asia and the Indian Ocean and come to Nairobi, you then understand very well that what connects Asia, Africa is the sea lanes. What will give stability and prosperity to the world is none other than the enormous liveliness brought forth through the union of two free and open oceans and two continents. Let us make this strength, this stretch that is from Asia to Africa, a main artery for growth and prosperity. This statement was the beginning of Japanese Foreign Ministry's recent vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific. And after Mr. Abe's speech, references to the Indo-Pacific increased globally. Just after that speech in November, President Trump said the US has our vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific. And Australia's foreign policy white paper has a section on Indo-Pacific partnership. And in May 2018, the United States has changed the name of the Pacific Command into Indo-Pacific Command. And in 2018, Mr. Modi of India add one adjective to make this concept a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific policy. And 2019, ASEAN leaders, leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, adopts what is called the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. And April 2021, European Council released the EU strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. And then the United States, under Mr. Biden administration, released a formal strategy for the Indo-Pacific. And so, as the reality of economic dynamism shifts from the Atlantic to the Pacific to the Indo-Pacific, now the leaders of the world have developed the concept that reflects this changing reality by referring to that region as the Indo-Pacific. Well, this is a digression, the total digression. This is the old map, preserved in Japan. It's a Ryukoku University's library preserves this map. And this map was appear to have drawn in Korea in 1402. More than 100 years before, Europeans came to the Indian Oceans or the seas around Japan or Korea. And I think this is a really amazing map. As of 1402, this could, I think, well be the best world map, drawing or paying attention to the oceanic connectivity. As it was drawn in Korea, Korea's figure is very, very accurate. And then you have China, and then you have India. But and then amazing thing about this map is that it has a Arabian Peninsula and Africa with the huge Lake Victoria here. But as you see this old map, you see Sri Lanka around here. And then Japan is around here. Japan, Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia are really, according to this map, connected in the sea lines of communications. And then, in fact, many historians indicate that before Europeans came to this region, the inter-regional trades on the Indian Ocean, on the Southeast Asian seas and East Asian seas are quite vigorous. And so now, we are talking about the rise of the Indo-Pacific. And I would call it, today's rise of the Indo-Pacific is the revival of the Indo-Pacific. Okay, so this is a digression. But I have come to the time around 2016. But then we have experienced serious problems in the latter part of second decade of 21st century and the beginning of the third decade of the 21st century. And this I would call the compound crisis. And in the long time, when specialists of international relations study its development, it generally focuses on interstate relations or dynamics within the social system, dynamics among human beings. And both phenomena has a devastating consequences to human relations. Economy is generally considered as how humans use products, and basically, selling and buying are human activities, and so it's a phenomena only within social systems. But as we go through the first few decades of 21st century, we are now coming to realize that many important developments are not simply be exclusive phenomena within social systems. It is interaction between social systems and environmental systems. It is an interaction between social systems and physical system that can cause tremendous damage to humanity. Japanese are often, or Japanese government and JICA is often using about human security. Each and different people's security is, a very important concern. Human security is threatened by wars and depression. That means the social systems threaten our security. But in addition to that, the pandemics threatens our security. Pandemics is not simply a phenomena of social system. It's the interaction between social system and life systems, ecosystems. And then climatological system is giving tremendous impact on human existence. But climatological system is being affected by our activities. And so these interaction of physical, living, and social systems are now presenting us great challenges that we need to cope with. Well, let's go over several graphs again. The change of a climatological system, this is the global surface temperature changes from, again, the late 19th century to now. And then as you know that the recent reports indicated that last year, global surface temperature was highest since 1891. And the Paris Accord of Climate Change suggested that we have to work hard to put the global temperature within 1.5 degree higher than the pre-industrial level. And otherwise, that would cause tremendous damage to the systems. But already, this number appears to be about the same as 1.5 degree above the pre-industrial average. Of course, you know, there may be ups and downs, but this clearly signifies the significance of the climate change or impact of climatological physical system. Well, this is another graph that I draw from a database on natural disasters. And I separate natural disaster into the climate related, such as flood, typhoon, cyclones, drought, wildfire. Those are the climate related the natural disasters. And the blue is geological natural disasters such as earthquakes or tsunamis. The frequency of geological natural disasters appears to be more or less constant, although of course the geological disasters can cause tremendous damage too, as Japan had experienced last January. Earthquake and tsunami can kill a lot of people. But in terms of trend, those geological natural disasters occur more or less constant frequency. But it appears in the late 20th century, the number of climate-related disasters was on the rise. Now, in the 20th century, thankfully, it's not going up this way, but it's quite high. So this is one, causal effect of the physical system on social systems. And then we experienced pandemics. Well, this is a list of pandemics the world experienced in the 20th century. Here's a slide of the economics. The Spanish influenza was quite significant, 17.4 million more death, and then COVID-19. And in between, there are several pandemics, but their magnitudes were not so high that they may not have affected very much about the economy. But these two had a tremendous impact. And that all of us know by our experience that COVID-19 was a terrible condition. And how terrible it was. The one graph that indicates the previous graph with a negative red. This is another way of seeing the negative impact. Again, this shows a similar map as we saw in 2016. The color indicates the growth rate of each country. And so pink indicates more than 4% growth. And this is the condition in 2019, just before COVID-19. And this is what happened in 2020. Virtually all countries, well, except some China and Myanmar and Iran, virtually all countries that experienced terrible negative growth, well, including Sri Lanka. And so while the climate change disasters are giving impact on our life, in 2020, the world was hit by the pandemic, the threat from the environmental system or the life system. Then came 2022. That was the war in Ukraine in 2022. As we saw in the first graph, the number of deaths was on the rise in the 2020, 2021, 2022, and this increase in 2022 was brought about by Ukraine crisis. So, in a word, while the climate change is giving negative impact on social system, the life system change of pandemic gives a terrible economic downturn in the world. And on top of that, humans started terrible war. And so internal social system occurrences created another cause. And so 2022 was the year when humans were affected by threats from climatological system, life system, and social systems, all of them combined. Where it doesn't move. Oh, okay. This is the sort of picture that schematically indicates what I have just said. We are surrounded by social systems, that's red. But we are also surrounded by living systems. And we are also surrounded by physical systems. A human being is matter. And so we are part of physical system. And human being is a life. And so we are part of life system. And human beings are actors. And so we are part of social systems. And then currently, there have been increasing interaction between social system and physical system and living system. And then, a pandemic may have been accelerated by globalization in social system. And of course, climate change is caused by the greenhouse gas effect produced by economic changes within social systems. And so these interaction increased, and then these economic changes created the rise of Indo-Pacific, but also created social system factors that could bring about, in the end, war in Ukraine. And then the war in Ukraine increase the economy, energy prices, food prices, and general inflation. And general inflation caused the central governments in many countries to raise interest rates, and then that could affect the exchange rates, and then that could increase debt crisis of certain countries. And debt crisis, together with energy crisis, food crisis, may end up in political crisis. This is what you experienced in 2022. So we are in the compound crisis. Now, however, how to approach this? Because three systems are interacted with each other, but we are humans, and a human can make measures only through interaction with our humans. And one of the important interaction that should address this kind of complex reality is through interaction among powerful nations. And currently, the most powerful nations are the United States and China. And so how we can cope with this complex compound crisis may depend on the state of the most influential countries, the relationship between most influential countries. And I would like to go over some of the changes of US-China competition. Some of you may have remembered that in the late 20th century, after the post-Cold War, the United States adopted what is called the engagement policy toward China. And this is to, instead of containing potential threat from China, the United States encouraged China's entry into the world international economic system so that China may gain benefits from entering into the global interaction. And then it was expected within the United States, as China's economy grows, it may become more liberal and democratic. So it would be better to help China become more integrated into the liberal international order. And then this may not be realized, but at that time, many American leaders believed that even if China does not liberalize, because the US technological preeminence would not be shaken, so no need to contain China now. And so the US tried to embrace China in the late 20th century. I have a graph again that draws certain characteristics of different countries. Horizontal axis is degrees of liberal democracy, measured by the Swedish institute called VDEM, Variety of Democracies Institute. And 1 is the most liberal, and 0 is the least liberal. The vertical is the living standard, as measured by per capita GDP. The higher, the most wealthy, the lower, the very poor. And then circle around each country indicates the size of the economy, the GDP. And then 1995, the world, many countries are located in different parts of this two-dimensional space. And as you see, the United States, Japan, and many Western European countries are on the right side. They are generally liberal democracy and high living standard, and the GDPs are quite high. And China then, in 1995, per capita GDP was lower than 1,000, lower than Sri Lanka's, and but the political system was highly autocratic, nearly zero. And then I put some other countries on the area. India's per capita GDP was even lower than China's, but fairly liberal. This was 1995, and if you change these, year by year, the country's position moves. And first, maybe you should look at how China moves. And China's circle is getting higher as it moves up to vertically. The per capita GDP is going up, goes through 5,000, and now the 2015, China's per capita GDP is around 10,000, and 2020, 2022. This is the most recent picture. The US expectation and the engagement policy was not realized. China grow and become prosper, but China's political system hasn't changed at all. Well, I'm not sure if we have time, but I would like to start once again. If you're interested in Sri Lanka's position, look at where that's in the late 1990s. Well, Indonesia democratized, and Russia is becoming more autocratic under Mr. Putin. Sri Lanka is, moving toward the left. It's more autocratic, but in the middle of 2014, some liberalized to become similar to Indonesia, and then past 1 or 2 years, Sri Lanka's positions, going left and up and low. And currently, 2022 was a very bad year for Sri Lanka, and so per capita GDP declined. But focusing on US-China relations, China has not changed its political system, but it became very prosperous. It surpassed GDP of Japan in 2010, and now very powerful. And in 2017, Mr. Xi Jinping, President of China, declared that the system with Chinese characteristics have kept developing, blazing a new trail for other developing countries to achieve modernization. It offers a new option for other countries and nations who want to speed up their development while preserving their independence. And it offers Chinese wisdom and the Chinese approach to solving the problems facing mankind. China has become very confident about the superiority of its political and economic system. And looking at this, the United States has changed its policy. National security strategy released after this Mr. Xi Jinping statement indicates for decades, US policy was rooted in the belief that support for China's rise and for its integration into the post-war international order would liberalize China. Contrary to our hopes, China expanded its power at the expense of the sovereignty of others, and decided that the engagement policy was a failure. And after the Trump administration, this recognition of the Biden administration hasn't changed. And then indicated here that China is the only country with economic, diplomatic, military, and technological power to seriously challenge the stable and open international system. This created the quite structural change of the relations between the two superpowers. And the recognition indicated similar in the National Security Strategy released in 2022 under Mr. Biden's administration. And this was after the occurrence of Ukraine war. And then it says, Russia poses an immediate threat to the free and open international system. This indicates about Russian invasion. But the PRC, by contrast, is the only competitor with both the intent to reshape the international order and increasing the economic development, military, technological power to advance that objective. And so now the relations between the two, the superpowers, have undergone significant change, and which may be comparable to the time of the Cold War. And in order to illustrate such comparison, I just draw a picture in the world situation in 1950 and 2022. 1950 was the time when the Cold War started, and then the United States and the USSR were confronted each other, facing each other at Berlin. And European front was the most significant elements in the the Cold War. But in fact, in 1950, a major war occurred, not on this front line, but elsewhere in Korea. And somewhat similarly, in 2022, as the US said, China is the only competitor, and they faced each other over Taiwan on the Indo-Pacific front. But in 2022, war occurred elsewhere in Ukraine. And during the Cold War time, the war hasn't occurred on the main front. That was a great thing for the entire human beings. If the war had happened over Berlin between the two superpowers, they may end up in a nuclear war. But fortunately, that didn't happen, and Cold War ended. And similarly, well, the current condition is that major confrontation point is Taiwan. War is occurring elsewhere. And currently, the most dangerous thing in terms of war is the war occurring on this front. And if war occurs on this front, this could devastate the international system, far more significant than the war in Ukraine. So, but as I said, so the current situation has a similarity with the Cold War. US and China are confronted with each other over Taiwan on the Indo-Pacific front. But it has a very, very significant change. It's not the Cold War version 2. Because of the what I call the compound crisis. It is true that there are reality of competition. War in Ukraine is a competition. Geopolitical competition in the Indo-Pacific is a reality. And competition in the political system, democracy versus autocracy. And economic security and withdrawing global supply chains. But the humans are faced with threats not among social systems alone. We are facing with threats from physical system as through the climate change. And we are facing a potential revival of pandemics. And so climate change and global health, some of the things, no matter whether US and China are competing with each other, these could happen at any moment. That could make devastating impact. And then, as a result of the compound crisis, many things happen to many developing countries, and some created debt crisis. And debt crisis cannot be managed if two superpowers are competing with each other. And then here in the competition of Indo-Pacific is reality, I said. Well, the Americans and Chinese consider how to strengthen their sphere of influence in the Indo-Pacific. But I would like you to remember why, first of all, the Indo-Pacific was started to be regarded as important. It's because the potential economic growth for the world. Unless the Indo-Pacific grows, the world doesn't grow. And for the prosperity of everyone, we need to realize the prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. And so the Indo-Pacific may be a competitive area, but also it is an area that all parties have joint interest in maintaining its peace and accelerate its prosperity. And so these are, in my understanding, the current challenges. I would like to wrap up by just pointing out what Japan is trying to cope with such challenges. I just listed the 4 documents, National Security Strategy in 2022, and Free and Open Indo-Pacific Plan, Prime Minister mentioned in March, and G7 Hiroshima Summit, May 2023, and Development Cooperation Charter renewed in June 2023. Japan has to face reality. Reality of competition. China's military build-up is on the rise. China quite frequently incurs into Japanese territorial waters. And North Korea kept launching missiles. And so Japan had to cope with that. And that's the gist of the strategy of national security. Doubling defense budget, possession of long-range counterattack capability. But this is a sort of minimum for Japan for its self-defense. But in order for a long-term interest, Japan's future is attached to the prosperity of free and open Indo-Pacific. And so that's the reason why Kishida-san, Prime Minister Kishida, released this plan on Indo-Pacific prosperity. And also globally, Japan led the G7 discussion. On the one hand, support Ukraine, create solidarity to support Ukraine. But on the other hand, Japan suggested to make stronger commitments to global issues where cooperation is needed. And more typically in development cooperation charter, Japan stressed that it continues to use human security as a guiding principle and address global issues and accelerate efforts to achieve SDGs. And so, well, this Japanese strategy reflects reality of competition, but then these 3 others are more or less reflected the needs of cooperation that the current world is facing. If the war doesn't happen and geopolitical competition is more or less managed and tensions are reduced, this is the IMF's projection of growth of the world in 2025. And here again, Indo-Pacific regions are in the pink. Well, IMF's projection for the Sri Lanka was still not upbeat enough, but if peace prevails and prosperity continues, then Sri Lanka's growth will be coming back soon. And so I hope we are entering into the second period of prosperity of the Indo-Pacific. That's going to be the 21st century. With this, I would like to end my remarks, and I'm looking forward to the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have another round of applause to Dr. Tanaka for that informative session on international relations under Compound Crisis. To present a token of appreciation to our distinguished guests, this cordial invitation goes to the Vice Chancellor of University of Colombo, Senior Professor Chair, H.D. Karunaratne. Sir, can we have you on stage? First and foremost, the resource person of the day, the President of Japan International Cooperation Agency, Dr. Akihiko Tanaka. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause for Dr. Tanaka. Up next, may I respectfully invite the Chief Representative of JICA Sri Lanka office, Mr. Tatsuo Yamada, on stage to collect his token of appreciation. Thank you, sirs. Ladies and gentlemen, up next in the agenda is an interactive panel discussion which will be conducted by the student volunteers who have been part of the JICA Chair Program over the period from 2023 to 2024. So, may I call upon the following individuals on stage. First and foremost, Ms. Himasha Hapugala from the Department of Business and Economics, representing the Faculty of Management and Finance. Ms. Shakya Veerasena from the Department of International Business, Faculty of Management and Finance. Ms. Kavindra Lokuge from the Department of International Relations, Faculty of Arts. And Ms. Udani Jayalat from the Department of International Relations, Faculty of Arts, who will be acting as the facilitator of this panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause to our panelists of this program?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a worthy conversation relating to Japan-Sri Lanka relations. I'm Udani Jayalat from the Department of International Relations, Faculty of Arts, and I'll be your moderator for the day. In our panel today, we have Shakya Veerasena from the Department of International Business, Faculty of Management and Finance. And then we have Himasha Hapugala from the Department of Business and Economics, Faculty of Management and Finance. And then Kavindra Lokuge from Department of International Relations, Faculty of Arts. So without further ado, let me turn to your side, Himasha. This program was conducted with the idea of sharing Japan's economic development ideas with students of Sri Lanka. So my question to you is what we as a country can learn from these economic development strategies of Japan?
Yes, Udani. So I guess talking about the economic development in Japan, so why is it talked this much? This is because of the very high growth rates that Japan achieved after the post-World War. So it is so known as the Japanese economic miracle due to it. So I'll talk about what I found as significant in this journey. So the first of all, I would like to talk about the education, innovation, and the technological development of Japan. So talking about Japan, they invested heavily on their technological development part. They took in knowledge from other countries related to technology and then made it their own. They adopted according to their own country's needs. So for an example, I would like to take the steel industry of Japan and how it developed. Like due to the development of the steel industry in Japan, it spread to the other sectors, such as the automobile industry. So all this happened because they invested in technology. So as we know, in the current context, technology is one of the main parts that we should focus on as a country. Because it helps in the long run success for any country. So as Sri Lankans, I think that we also would take the initiative to invest in our technology. So we see that there are a lot of people in Sri Lanka who has the capacity, the knowledge to develop Sri Lanka as a technologically developed country. A lot of people voice out their new innovations. So what we should do is we should make policies to take these people into light. Like we have a lot of rules regarding copyright and then royalty and all. But there are less ways that we bring our people into light. So there should be ways and means to take these people out and then take use of them in order to achieve a competitive advantage as a country. So that's my opinion on the technology side. And the second thing I would like to talk about is the economic policies in Japan. So the important point of the economic policies in Japan is they focused on their long-run economic development. So, of course, there are targets achieved in the short run, but the main point is they had long-run goals. So, talking about the income doubling policy by the Aikida government. So, what they did was they invested heavily on both the public and private sectors. And then they focused on their trade activities. They focused on how they wanted to develop their export potential. So due to that, they developed to a huge extent. And that is how they achieved a huge growth potential. So even for us, I think one of the main things that we should achieve also is the long-term goals and aims as a country. So without changing our political and economic policies in the short term, we should focus on the long run and then be patient with that. So I think we have a lot of knowledgeable and intelligent economists in Sri Lanka. So by taking like advice from Japan and then help, we should make long-term policies and stick with that. That's the main point. So those are two important things that I found as very important in Japan's journey. if that answers your question.
Yes, exactly, Himansha. So with that, actually, I would like to ask you this also. With what you said, all in all, we see that people in developing countries per se, both government and private, they are not given properly, duly representation, for example, in working places. So, but does Japan has their own proper ways of institutions supporting employees and recognizing their worth? And what can we learn from that? Do you have any opinion on that?
Yes, Udani. So, as we are talking about the development in Japan, its people are one of the main factors that we should speak about. So, Japan's development was achieved mainly because of the hard-working individuals of it. So, after the reforms in Japan in this development era, they had a lot of labor unions formed and all these things. So one of the reforms was they hired employees in with the long-term duration, and they valued their employees. Like if I tell the word de facto ownership, so they treated employees as their own, because the reason was employees were the core part why organizations developed. Like not in a legal way, but in an emotional aspect, employees were given value. So as they are hired in a long-term basis, they felt the need to develop their own organization, the firm. I want to contribute for the success of my firm. So this value of the employees, they were given reward. They were rewarded accordingly. So as a country, as any country, its people are one of the main factors of its development. So people should be rewarded for their contribution accordingly. What I mean is, people who provide their skills should be identified and they should be rewarded. They should feel like, I belong here, I can make a difference here. So that's the fact. So any developing country or any country, they should focus on their people. So Japan is a country with equalism a lot. So adopting their styles, learning from them, we should adopt what they have gained according to our context and then move forward. So people are one of the main parts, just as you said. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Himansha. That was interesting. So talking about people, then how we implement things are through policy, right? So Japanese competition policy, it involves studying and adapting rules and regulations that Japan has developed over the years to promote fair competition and economic growth. By implementing these similar policies, countries can sort of ensure, I think, that business to compete fairly in the market. Overall, leveraging Japanese competition policy, it can help countries create a conducive environment for sustainable economic development as well. So Shakya, I would like to ask you, how has Japan's competition policy evolved over time to suit its economic needs? Do you have any opinion on that?
So when it comes to the evolution of Japan's competition policy, so Japan is one of the countries where their competition policy evolved over their economic development, starting from what came out of the Meiji government, the Meiji Restoration of 1868, where prior to the Meiji government, Japan had a feudal economic system with a four-layer stratified society, where most people did not have the freedom of occupation. But post-Meiji government, the Meiji government implemented a system for the freedom of economic trade and adopted free market principles. And so with that, we see that people start doing a lot of businesses. And so we see that because of all these economic reforms that were done during that era, a lot of industrial growth happened in Japan. So also as a part of diversifying Japan's economy in terms of moving into other industries, the government also started large-scale factories and then privatized them and handed them over to the private sector. These became large conglomerates called zaibatsu, and this also aided Japan's economic growth a lot. But at this time, according to the discussion that we had on that day, so Japan followed a free market system which was closer to a cartel organized economy. Because of all the conglomerate power, as well as because of the industrial policies that caused smaller businesses to cartelize in order to fix prices. So this was the situation that was there in Japan before the World War, and during the World War II era, Japan moved from a liberal economy into a controlled economy to support the munitions production within Japan. But then post-World War, under the American occupation, you see a lot of the conglomerates that were formed during the Meiji government being dismantled and broken up. Huge conglomerates such as Mitsubishi and Mitsui being broken up, as well as Anti-Monopoly Act coming into being, which would, in order to promote a more liberal economy in Japan again. So after the post-World War reforms and the Anti-Monopoly Act, you see Japan having a huge level of economic growth, as Himasha mentioned, the Japanese economic miracle. And more recently, you see a lot of consumer movements and a lot of consumer-led legal issues that have brought prominence and change to competition law within Japan.
Right, so that was interesting to even hear about the conglomerates and the Saibatsu. It was new. So the other question I want to ask is, what are the key takeaways from Japan's competition laws and policies for a developing country that also want to develop more comprehensive laws and policies in their system?
So when it comes to key takeaways, I think one of the most important things that we can take from the competition law in Japan is the fact that it has a solid competition law and policy. Something that came out of the discussion that day was Sri Lanka's laws and legislation regarding competition law was scattered among 37 acts or pieces of legislation in our constitution and the legal system. So that is not something that is conducive for free competition, because it makes it very difficult for smaller businessmen or laymen to follow on what competition law in the countries. So having a solid competition law is, first of all, I think, very important. And then one of the other things that I was very impressed by in the competition law in Japan was regarding their subcontract law, where the bargaining power between larger companies as well as smaller companies who would supply parts and raw materials to larger companies, where that relationship was managed to protect the smaller company in terms of fixing times of payments and delivery and having overall favorable terms towards smaller companies. So I think that is one aspect that is very important in a competition law. Another thing that is important about, that I think is important in Japan's competition law is how they managed the dismantling of the concentration of economic power that was held within conglomerates as well as cartels. Because while it would be quite difficult for a developing country to do, such large-scale dismantling of economic power, I think for a free market competition, that is quite necessary. And another fact that was emphasized was how Japan's competition law is in line with their industrial policy, and how that brought a lot of change and a lot of growth within the 1950s to 70s era, where Japan developed a lot. So that, I think, is...
Yeah, so as Himasha was talking about economic development, and then you about competition policy, an equal importance goes to how Japan manages its agriculture. So Kavindra, now I would like to turn to your side and ask, the Japanese agriculture is much developed. and we see how they use smart machines, and they share how they share ideas to make farms better. So how can another in a developing country, or any country for that matter, learn from Japan's ways of farming with the integration of new technology?
Thanks for the opportunity, Udani. So when answering your question, how can Japanese agricultural development strategies to be used in Sri Lanka to improve our agriculture? So as we all know, Japan is well known for its agricultural development records for decades, right? So when starting with the evolution of this Japanese agricultural development and its strategies, it has a natural shift towards the modernization of technology. And they adopt new technologies all the times and integration with the global market as well. So Japan's agricultural sector faces lots of challenges, such as aging workforce, high input costs, and also fragmented industry structure. But anyhow, it managed to make a significant progress amidst all these challenges in leveraging technology and increasing exports and having a clear target, what we call goals, for export revenues and productions as well. So with the limited time given to me, I selected the most effective 4 Japanese agricultural development strategies that have been implemented in Japan and has been a success, and what we can follow effectively here in Sri Lanka. Number 1 is the technology transfer. So Udani, we know that Japan has been using technology, the modern technology, in its agricultural sector for decades. And this is basically helps to increase their productivity. So in Sri Lanka also, we can gain Japan's experience by adapting this kind of modern technology strategies, such as biologicals and genomic insight and cost-effective farming automation to improve its agricultural practices. Number 2 is knowledge sharing and research collaboration. I think this is the most effective strategy that Japan has used. Japan has been actively involved in international agricultural research and development. So I would like to mention that with the cooperation of international level organizations and research bodies, specifically with the consultative group on international agricultural research, it did many research work and innovations as well. So as a developing country, I think that innovating this kind of doing innovations and keep doing developmental work can help our country to be better in agricultural sector. The third strategy that I've selected is the value chain development. So Japan has been focusing on this developing food value chains and promoting food sales and market distribution and agricultural processes in rural areas. I think we need to implement it in the same way, because it might be a good solution for the food insecurity that we find in some of the rural areas in Sri Lanka. And that last but not least is the policy formulation and the infrastructure development. So one of the key strategies that Japan implemented is focusing on the farmer, the development of the farmer. So Japan actually support the development of the infrastructure and the irrigation facilities, farm roads and cultivators. So I think not only that, it provides assistance for drafting strategic and effective agricultural policies. I think it's a good lesson that Sri Lanka also can follow. So in addition, I would like to mention that Japan has provided us with financial assistance to support food security and livelihood recovery as well. Specifically, the government of Japan also provided funds through the Food and Agriculture Organization in UN. So this is basically to boost paddy cultivation in dry and intermediate zones in Sri Lanka. So these kind of initiatives also help to improve the economic development of our country.
Yes, Kavindra, thank you so much for that excellent answer. So with that, we come to the end of our panel discussion. Once again, to recap, we had Himasha talking about economic development in Japan, and then we moved to Shakya. She was talking about the competition policy, and then finally, Kavindra talking about agricultural development in Japan. So I would like to take this time to thank all of you panelists, and for giving us your insightful ideas and commentaries on Japan and its development, and how we could sort of implement the same in our countries. And most importantly, our thanks goes to the professors who conducted the lectures and imparted this knowledge in us. With that being said, this is the end of our panel discussion. Thank you very much.
We have now reached one of the most important and awaited moments for today's event, the awarding of certificates. For this, I would like to cordially invite the President of JICA, Dr. Akihiko Tanaka, accompanied by the Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne. First up, we have M.M. Tharushika Seumini. W. Pavani Thisaru Pereira. A.P. Vikramasekara. M.V.D.D. Padmakumara. D.M.A. Sulakshana Disanayaka. K.D. Kavindi Ansika. K.D. Hasini Udeshika. P.M. Edirivira. Pevindri Manchanayaka. Sarasi Madhubashini. Lamina Palagolle. Gimesha Kavindi.
Thank you, Dr. Tanaka. Can we have Mr. Kotaro Katsuki, the Deputy Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka, on stage to distribute the certificates to the next participants. Nuwanti K. Ratnayaka. M. Karunaratna. Kavindra Lakuge. Sahasra Lankeshwari. M.U.I. Silva. A.S. Rajapaksha. R.M.N.D. Ranatunga. H.S. Adhikari. U.S. Jayalat. M.J. Vassala. L.A. Arachi.
Thank you, Mr. Katsuki. Now, I would like to invite the second secretary, Mr. Hiroki Inoue, up on stage to present the certificates. M.H. Nimeshika. T.K. Aryasinghe. N.F. Sirivardhana. P.S. Veerasena. Chamari Sewandi. N.N. Lamahevage. C.M. Paranagama. U.M. Paduka. K.A. Gunathilaka. L.D. Vijay N.F. Zikra. A.A. Udayangani. S.A. Hettiarachchi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Inouye. To assist with the certification to the participant up next, I would call upon Mr. Teruyuki Aito, the Director General of the South Asia Department. M.A.M. Navanjana. I.A. Pereira. S.D. Pereira. R.C. Hemara. M.R. Mariam. I.K. Rashmika. Apologies, I.K. Rashmika. M.R.F. Afroz. G.D. Sumeda. K.P. Dilhani. S.P. Ekanayaka. H.R.N. Hapugala. A. Sabana.
Thank you, Mr. Aito. Now, I would like to call upon Mr. Tetsuya Yamada, the Chief Representative of JICA Sri Lanka, to present the next set of certificates. N.M. Herath. D.M. Pereira. N.S. Senaviratna. Yahara Gunawardana. Yatmi Abesekara. Tiksha Gunasinghe. Sure. I beg your pardon, Tiksha Gunasinghe. R.A.K. Omeshika. I.R. Vikramasinghe. T.N. Ranavira. Chamindu Shirantaka. D.S. Silva.
Thank you very much, sirs. Up next to distribute the certificates, may I call upon Ms. Yuri Aide, the senior representative of JICA Sri Lanka, and to accompany her, this cordial invitation goes to Dr. Iroja Caldera. R.D. Samaranayake. Shirafa Siddiq. Sandula Jayatni. Jasi Pakirtan. Thank you, Ms. Aide. May I call upon once again the Deputy Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka, Mr. Kotaro Katsuki, on stage. W.A. Madhushika Devindi. G.S. Nishadi. And last but not the very least, Jeevan Kumar.
Thank you, dear sir and madam. Now, I would like to invite the head of the Department of International Relations, Professor Chaminda Padmakumara, on stage to deliver the closing remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests and dear students, due to time constraints, I will make my vote of thanks short. First, I would like to mention that University of Colombo is grateful for the presence of so many of you here today and for accepting our kind invitation to grace the closing ceremony of JICA Chair Program 2023-2024. First and foremost, on behalf of the University of Colombo, I would like to give our sincere gratitude to His Excellency, the Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka, Mitsukoshi Hideki, for gracing this occasion today and your kind patronage in making JICA Chair Program a great success. Thank you very much for His Excellency for your generous and continuous support to the University of Colombo. We deeply appreciate it. Then our recognitions and gratitude go to our guest speaker today, President of JICA, Dr. Akihiko Tanaka. Thank you very much for gracing this occasion and delivering a very insightful guest lecture on international relations under Compound Crisis, a Japanese perspective. We strongly believe that your lecture provided us very comprehensive, in-depth examination of the changing and challenging dynamics of current international system. And also, we learn about how Japan perceives current development and trends in the existing international system. Then we express our sincere gratitude to Chief Representative JICA Sri Lanka, Mr. Tetsuya Yamada, for your continued support and making this program a successful reality. Thank you very much, Mr. Yamada, for being with us today. Next, our appreciation goes to Senior Professor, Chair H.D. Karunaratne, Vice Chancellor of University of Colombo. Sir, we highly appreciate your leadership and guidance provided us during JICA Chair Program. We also sincerely thank you for giving this valuable opportunity for the undergraduates of University of Colombo. Sir, we wish that this opportunity will be continued and will immensely contribute to our vision to be a center of global excellence in education and research. We also acknowledge the assistance and support given by the JICA Sri Lanka team and Embassy of Japan in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for your effective coordination and support given to JICA Chair Program with University of Colombo. Rectors, deans, directors, heads of the department, and all academic members present here, we thank you for your participation and active support given to the JICA Chair Program. I would also like to especially acknowledge the support given by the Deans of the Faculty of Arts, Deans of the Faculty of Management and Finance, and heads of the Departments of Economics, International Business, and Business Economics for your active contribution. Next, our appreciation go to former Director of International Unit, Professor Shashika Manoratne, and Acting Director of International Unit, Dr. Iroja Caldera. I also take this opportunity to thank members of the administrative staff, including Active Registrar, Bursa, and FOS Media, and staff of International Office for making this occasion a great success. Let me also thank University of Colombo School of Computing for giving this venue for JICA Chair 2023-2024 closing ceremony. Finally, I thank you students for attending the JICA session and showing your great interest in this program. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude yet another chapter of the JICA Chair Program for the year 2023 and for the year 2024. And I truly hope that the students who have been involved in this session was truly inspired and motivated. But before I conclude today's session, the organizing committee would like to inform that the official photograph will be taken on stage, and they invite all the registered students to come to the stage at the end of this program. And for the rest of the audience, the organizing committee would like to announce that to please grab your refreshments on your way out. With that, signing off from the Malasekara Hall of the UCSC premises, my name is Nimuthu Sirivardhana.
And I'm Dinu Yamitna.
Thank you very much and have a pleasant day.